Imagine standing on a planet much larger than Earth, a world where gravity pulls twice as hard. The sky looks unfamiliar, and the landscape feels strangely heavy beneath your feet. Somewhere in our galaxy, planets like this actually exist. They are called super-Earths, rocky worlds bigger than our planet, possibly covered with oceans, alien ecosystems, and maybe even life. But if we could walk on one of these planets, what would it really feel like? What would the sky look like? What kind of creatures might live there? And could humans ever survive on such a world? Tonight, we are going to slowly explore one of the most fascinating possibilities in the universe: life on a super-Earth. Before we begin our quiet journey across the universe, take a moment to gently tap the like button. It helps this video reach more curious minds who enjoy relaxing science and peaceful space stories. And if you enjoy falling asleep while exploring the mysteries of the universe, consider subscribing to the channel. Here, we slowly explore space, science, and the strange wonders of the cosmos, one calm story at a time. Now, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin our journey across the universe. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that the world around you feels different. You step outside your home, and immediately you notice something strange. Your body feels heavier. Walking takes more effort. Jumping even a few inches into the air feels almost impossible. The sky above you looks familiar, yet somehow different. The sun appears smaller, and the horizon stretches farther than it ever did on Earth. You look around and realize something extraordinary. You are no longer standing on Earth. You are standing on a super-Earth, a world much larger, heavier, and perhaps far more mysterious than our own planet. But what exactly is a super-Earth? Despite the name, a super-Earth is not necessarily a better version of Earth. The term simply means a planet that is larger and more massive than Earth, but still made mostly of rock. In astronomy, when scientists say mass, they mean how much matter something contains. For example, if a planet has 5 times the mass of Earth, it means it contains 5 times more material packed into its body. Many super-Earths are thought to be between 2 and 10 times the mass of our planet. That might not sound like much, but in planetary terms, it makes an enormous difference. Because when a planet becomes larger, something very important also changes. Gravity. Gravity is the invisible force that pulls objects toward each other. It is what keeps our feet on the ground, what keeps the moon orbiting Earth, and what keeps the planets moving around the sun. On a super-Earth, gravity could be 2, 3, or even 4 times stronger than the gravity we experience here. Imagine carrying a backpack that suddenly becomes 3 times heavier. Every step would feel more difficult. Your muscles would work harder just to move. Even breathing might feel slightly different, because your body would be under constant extra pressure. And yet, if life evolved on a super-Earth, the creatures there would consider this completely normal, because they would have adapted to it over millions of years. To understand how different such a world might be, scientists first look beyond our solar system. They search for planets orbiting other stars. These distant worlds are called exoplanets. The word exo simply means outside. So an exoplanet is a planet that exists outside our solar system. In the past 2 decades, astronomers have discovered thousands of exoplanets. Some are giant gas planets like Jupiter. Some are frozen worlds far from their stars. And some appear to be rocky planets larger than Earth. These are the super-Earths. One famous example is a planet known as Kepler 452b. This planet orbits a star similar to our Sun, and scientists believe it may be about 60% larger than Earth. Another example is Gliese 581g, a world that may lie within its star's habitable zone. The habitable zone is the region around a star where temperatures might allow liquid water to exist. Water is extremely important for life as we know it. On Earth, wherever there is liquid water, life tends to appear, because water helps chemical reactions happen inside living cells. So when scientists search for life in the universe, one of the first things they ask is a simple question. Could liquid water exist there? If a super-Earth has the right temperature, the right atmosphere, and the right amount of water, then in theory, it might support life. But life on a super-Earth would almost certainly look very different from life on Earth, because the environment would shape everything. The gravity, the atmosphere, the oceans, even the mountains. On a planet with stronger gravity, mountains might be shorter because gravity would pull them down more easily. On Earth, the tallest mountain is Mount Everest, reaching about 8.8 kilometers above sea level. But on a super-Earth, mountains might not grow nearly as tall. Gravity would constantly push them downward, making the surface flatter over time. At the same time, the atmosphere of a super-Earth might be thicker. When scientists talk about an atmosphere, they mean the layer of gases surrounding a planet. Earth's atmosphere contains nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and many other gases. It protects us from harmful radiation and helps regulate the planet's temperature. A larger planet could hold on to its atmosphere more strongly because of its gravity. This means the air might be denser. Denser air can carry more sound and even make flying easier for certain types of creatures. On such a world, strange flying animals might glide effortlessly through thick skies. But stronger gravity might also limit how large those creatures could become. Bodies would need to be stronger, sturdier, and closer to the ground. Tall, delicate structures might collapse under their own weight. Life might evolve in compact forms. Powerful legs, thick bones, dense muscles. Creatures adapted to survive in a heavy world. And somewhere on that distant super-Earth, beneath an unfamiliar sky, entire ecosystems might exist. Forests made of alien plants, oceans filled with unfamiliar creatures, and perhaps intelligent beings looking up at their own night sky, wondering the same question we ask here on Earth. Are we alone in the universe? But before we imagine the life that might exist on a super-Earth, we first need to understand something even more fundamental. What would it actually feel like to live on a planet with much stronger gravity? Would humans even be able to walk there? Or would the weight of that world make life almost impossible? That is exactly what we will explore next. Imagine again that you are standing on the surface of a super-Earth. The ground beneath your feet looks solid and familiar. Rocks, soil, perhaps even plants surround you. But as soon as you try to move, you realize something important has changed. Every step feels heavier. Your legs must work harder just to lift your body. Even standing still requires effort because gravity is pulling you downward with far greater force than on Earth. This stronger pull is called surface gravity. Surface gravity simply means the strength of gravity that you feel on the surface of a planet. On Earth, this value is about 9.8 meters per second squared. Scientists often shorten this to 1g. The g stands for gravity. If a super-Earth has 2g, that means gravity there is twice as strong as Earth's gravity. So if you weigh 70 kilograms on Earth, your body would effectively feel like it weighs 140 kilograms on that planet. You are still the same person, but the world has become heavier. Walking would be slower. Running might feel exhausting. Jumping might barely lift you off the ground at all. Even something simple like climbing stairs could feel like intense exercise. But interestingly, humans might still be able to survive on some super-Earths, at least for a while. Scientists believe the human body might adapt to gravity up to about 2 or 3 times Earth's gravity. though it would be very difficult. Your muscles would need to become stronger, your bones would need to support more weight, and your heart would have to pump blood harder to move it through your body. Your heart already works against gravity every time it pushes blood upward toward your brain. On a high-gravity world, that task would become even more demanding. But for life that evolved naturally on a super-Earth, this heavier environment would feel completely normal. Over millions of years, evolution would shape organisms to match the conditions of their planet. This process is called natural selection. Natural selection means that creatures with traits that help them survive are more likely to live long enough to reproduce. Over many generations, these helpful traits become more common in the population. On a super-Earth, natural selection might favor creatures with shorter bodies and stronger limbs. Tall and thin creatures might struggle because their bodies would have to support more weight. Instead, animals might look compact, powerful, and close to the ground. Imagine creatures similar to large cats or reptiles, but with extremely strong muscles and thick bones. Some might move slowly but steadily across the landscape, conserving energy in the heavy gravity. Others might develop multiple legs for extra stability. Even plants might grow differently. On Earth, some trees grow incredibly tall because gravity allows them to support their height. But on a super-Earth, gravity might limit how tall plants can grow. Instead of towering forests, the landscape might be filled with shorter, thicker vegetation. Plants might spread outward rather than upward. Their trunks might be wide and strong, designed to resist the constant downward pull. But gravity doesn't only affect living things. It also shapes the entire landscape of a planet. Mountains, rivers, oceans, and even the atmosphere are influenced by gravity. On a super-Earth, mountains might look very different from those on Earth. Because gravity pulls material downward, extremely tall mountains might collapse under their own weight. Scientists sometimes call this the height limit of mountains. Every planet has a natural limit for how tall mountains can grow. On Earth, that limit is roughly around the height of Mount Everest. But on a planet with stronger gravity, that limit would be lower. Mountains might appear broader and flatter, spreading across the landscape instead of rising sharply. The surface might look smoother overall. Valleys could be wide and shallow, and rivers might flow more slowly because gravity presses water more tightly against the ground. Oceans on a super-Earth could also behave differently. Stronger gravity would hold water more firmly to the planet's surface. This might create deeper ocean basins because the planet could support more pressure pushing water downward. The deeper you go in an ocean, the greater the pressure becomes. Pressure simply means how strongly something is being pushed or squeezed. For example, when you dive underwater on Earth, the water above you presses down with increasing force. On a super-Earth, that pressure would increase even faster. Deep oceans might become extremely dark and dense environments. And if life existed there, it would need to withstand enormous pressure. Some creatures on Earth already live in such extreme conditions. In the deepest parts of our oceans, scientists have discovered fish and microorganisms that survive under pressures hundreds of times greater than at the surface. These creatures are called extremophiles. The word comes from extreme, meaning very harsh conditions, and phile, meaning something that loves or thrives in a certain environment. Extremophiles show us that life can survive in places we once thought impossible. So if life evolved on a super-Earth with deep oceans and strong gravity, those organisms might adapt in remarkable ways. Some might develop flexible bodies that resist crushing pressure. Others might grow protective outer shells. And some might live near underwater volcanic vents, where heat and minerals provide energy for entire ecosystems. But gravity also influences something else that is incredibly important for life: the atmosphere. The atmosphere is the layer of gases surrounding a planet. On Earth, gravity holds our atmosphere close to the surface. Without gravity, those gases would drift away into space. On a super-Earth, stronger gravity could hold an even thicker atmosphere. The air might be denser. Clouds might form differently. Storms could be powerful, yet slow-moving. And the sky itself might look very different from what we see on Earth. But what would it actually look like to stand beneath that alien sky? Would it appear blue like ours, or something completely different? That is exactly what we will explore next. Imagine standing once again on the surface of a super-Earth. The ground beneath your feet is firm and heavy, shaped by stronger gravity. But now, slowly lift your eyes and look upward. The sky above you might be one of the most beautiful and unfamiliar sights you have ever seen. On Earth, our sky usually appears blue during the day. But this color is not random. It happens because of something called Rayleigh scattering. Rayleigh scattering is the process by which tiny particles in the atmosphere scatter or spread out. Sunlight. Sunlight looks white, but it is actually made of many colors. Blue light has shorter wavelengths, which means it scatters more easily in the atmosphere. As sunlight passes through the air, blue light spreads in all directions, making the sky appear blue to our eyes. But on a super-Earth, the atmosphere might be very different. Because of the planet's stronger gravity, it could hold on to a much thicker atmosphere than Earth. A thicker atmosphere means there would be more gas molecules floating in the sky. These molecules would scatter sunlight differently. Instead of a soft blue sky, the sky might appear deep violet, pale green, or even golden orange, depending on the types of gases present. For example, if the atmosphere contained large amounts of methane, a gas also found on planets like Neptune, the sky might appear slightly greenish or hazy. If there were more dust particles or thick clouds, sunlight might scatter in a way that gives the sky a permanent sunset glow. On some super-Earths, the sky might look like an endless twilight. But the atmosphere does much more than create beautiful skies. It also controls temperature, weather, and climate. Climate simply refers to the long-term pattern of weather on a planet. Weather includes things like wind, rain, clouds, and storms. On Earth, our atmosphere is thick enough to protect us from harmful radiation from space and to keep our planet warm enough for liquid water. Without an atmosphere, Earth would be a frozen, lifeless rock. But on a super-Earth with stronger gravity, the atmosphere could become extremely dense. Imagine air that feels slightly heavier when you breathe. Your lungs might need to work a little harder. But denser air has interesting effects. For example, sound travels more efficiently through dense air. Voices might carry farther across the landscape. The sound of wind moving through alien forests could travel long distances. Thunder from distant storms might echo across entire valleys. Flying might also become easier. On Earth, birds and airplanes rely on air pressure to generate lift. Lift is the upward force that allows wings to push against the air and rise. In denser air, wings can generate lift more easily. This means flying creatures on a super-Earth might glide gracefully with relatively small wings. Even large animals might be able to float through the sky with slow, powerful wing beats. Some scientists have suggested that on planets with thick atmospheres, enormous flying creatures might exist. Creatures much larger than any bird on Earth could drift through the air like living gliders. But weather on such a planet might also be very intense. Because the atmosphere holds more heat and moisture, storms could become extremely powerful. Massive cloud systems might stretch across continents. Lightning might flash continuously through dark alien clouds. Yet interestingly, these storms might move slowly. Denser air can make atmospheric movement more gradual, creating enormous but slow-moving weather patterns. A storm might take days, or even weeks, to pass across a region. Imagine standing on a distant super-Earth coastline, watching gigantic clouds slowly forming above an alien ocean. The wind begins to rise. Thunder rolls across the horizon, and towering storm clouds climb higher and higher into the sky. But the atmosphere of a planet also affects something else that is deeply connected to life: temperature. Temperature determines whether water exists as ice, liquid, or vapor. And as we mentioned earlier, liquid water is extremely important for life as we know it. On Earth, the atmosphere helps regulate temperature through a process known as the greenhouse effect. Despite its name, the greenhouse effect is not necessarily harmful. It simply means that certain gases trap heat from the sun, preventing it from escaping back into space. Without this effect, Earth would be about 33 degrees Celsius colder, making it far more difficult for life to survive. But if a super-Earth had too many greenhouse gases, the planet might become extremely hot. This happened on our neighboring planet Venus. Venus has a thick atmosphere filled with carbon dioxide, which traps enormous amounts of heat. As a result, the surface of Venus is hotter than Mercury, even though Mercury is closer to the Sun. Some super-Earths might face a similar fate. Their thick atmospheres could trap heat so effectively that the surface becomes unbearably hot. Oceans might evaporate, clouds might form thick blankets across the sky, and the surface might resemble a steamy alien world. But if conditions were balanced just right, a super-Earth could have a stable, life-friendly climate. Warm oceans, thick clouds drifting slowly across the sky, and perhaps continents filled with strange plants and unfamiliar animals. If such a world exists somewhere in the galaxy, life there might experience skies unlike anything we have seen. Perhaps sunsets last longer because light travels through thicker air. Perhaps rain falls in heavy, slow droplets through dense clouds. Or perhaps the sky glows with colors that change depending on the chemical makeup of the atmosphere. But if life truly evolved on such a world, gravity and atmosphere would shape the creatures that live there in fascinating ways. How would animals move? How would plants grow? And what kinds of ecosystems might develop on a planet with stronger gravity and thicker air? That is exactly what we will explore next. Imagine walking slowly across the surface of a super-Earth. The air feels dense around you. The gravity presses you closer to the ground, and the sky above stretches across a world that may be both familiar and completely alien. But now your attention shifts to something growing around you: plants. If life exists on a super-Earth, plants would almost certainly be one of the first complex life forms to appear. On Earth, plants are extremely important because they perform a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the method plants use to convert sunlight into energy. During this process, plants take in carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil. Using sunlight, they transform these materials into sugars, which the plant uses as fuel. As a result of this process, oxygen is released into the atmosphere. That oxygen is what animals, including humans, breathe. Because of photosynthesis, plants are often called the foundation of ecosystems. An ecosystem simply means a community of living things interacting with their environment. Forests, oceans, deserts, and grasslands are all examples of ecosystems. But on a super-Earth, plants might not look like the plants we know. Gravity would once again play an important role in shaping their form. On Earth, some trees grow incredibly tall. The tallest trees, called redwoods, can reach heights of more than 100 meters. These towering giants are able to support their weight because Earth's gravity is relatively moderate. But on a super-Earth with stronger gravity, such extreme heights might be impossible. The weight of tall plants could cause them to collapse under their own mass. Instead of tall forests, the landscape might be filled with shorter, thicker vegetation. Plants might grow outward instead of upward. Wide trunks, thick stems, dense leaves designed to capture as much sunlight as possible while staying close to the ground. In some ways, these plants might resemble giant bushes or low, spreading trees. But gravity isn't the only factor shaping alien vegetation. The light from the planet's star would also influence how plants evolve. On Earth, plants appear green because of a molecule called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll absorbs sunlight and helps power photosynthesis, but it mainly absorbs red and blue wavelengths of light, reflecting green light back toward our eyes. That reflection is why most plants look green to us. However, on a different planet with a different type of star, plants might evolve different pigments. A pigment is simply a substance that produces color. If a super-Earth orbited a star slightly cooler than the Sun, plants might absorb different wavelengths of light. Instead of green vegetation, entire forests might appear dark red, purple, or even black. Some scientists believe that plants on certain planets could evolve almost black leaves to absorb as much light as possible. Imagine walking through a forest where the trees are deep violet or nearly black, absorbing sunlight under an unfamiliar sky. But ecosystems are not just made of plants. Wherever plants exist, animals eventually follow. Animals depend on plants either directly or indirectly for food. On Earth, herbivores eat plants. Carnivores eat herbivores. And scavengers feed on whatever remains. These relationships create what scientists call a food chain. A food chain describes how energy moves from one organism to another. For example, plants, herbivores, carnivores. Energy begins with sunlight and moves through the ecosystem as organisms eat one another. If a super-Earth had plants performing photosynthesis, similar food chains might develop there. Small plant-eating creatures might appear first. These could resemble insects, small reptiles, or entirely unfamiliar life forms. Over time, larger animals might evolve to hunt them. But gravity would once again influence the shape of these creatures. On Earth, large animals can grow very tall because gravity allows their bodies to support their weight. Giraffes, for example, evolved extremely long necks to reach leaves high in trees. But on a high-gravity world, long necks and tall legs might be impractical. Creatures might evolve lower, sturdier bodies. Instead of tall animals, ecosystems might be dominated by compact creatures with powerful muscles. Imagine animals similar to large reptiles or mammals with thick limbs and broad bodies, moving steadily across alien plains. Their bodies might appear almost compressed compared to animals on Earth. Yet their strength could be remarkable. But not all creatures would necessarily live on land. In fact, some scientists believe that oceans might be the most likely place for complex alien ecosystems. Water helps support the weight of organisms. On Earth, the largest animals that have ever existed are not land animals. They live in the ocean. The blue whale, the largest animal known in Earth's history, can grow longer than 30 meters. It is able to reach such enormous size partly because water helps support its massive body. On a super-Earth with stronger gravity, oceans might play an even greater role in supporting large life forms. Underwater ecosystems could contain enormous creatures drifting slowly through deep alien seas. Some might resemble giant jellyfish or squid. Others might develop strong shells or thick bodies capable of resisting the intense pressure of deep water. But ecosystems are shaped by more than gravity and sunlight. They are also shaped by time. On Earth, life has been evolving for nearly 4 billion years. Over this immense period, simple organisms gradually developed into complex plants and animals. If a super-Earth formed billions of years ago and had stable conditions for life, evolution there might have followed its own path. Entire alien ecosystems might have developed long before humans ever looked toward the stars. Strange forests, deep oceans filled with unfamiliar creatures, and perhaps even intelligent beings observing their world with curiosity. But if intelligent life ever evolved on a super-Earth, the environment of that world would influence not only their bodies, but also their technology and civilizations. What kinds of cities might exist on a heavy gravity planet? How would architecture change in such conditions? And could advanced civilizations truly arise on a super-Earth? That is what we will explore next. Imagine standing on the edge of an open plain on a distant super-Earth. The sky above is dense and softly glowing. The ground feels heavy beneath your feet, shaped by gravity stronger than anything humans are used to. In the distance, strange vegetation spreads across the landscape like thick alien forests. But something begins to move between the plants. Life. If ecosystems exist on a super-Earth, then animals, or at least animal-like organisms, would almost certainly evolve there over time. But they might look very different from the creatures we know on Earth. The reason again comes down to a simple but powerful force: gravity. On Earth, gravity allows animals to grow tall and move relatively easily. Giraffes can stretch their long necks toward the sky. Kangaroos can leap across open land. Birds can soar high above mountains. But on a super-Earth, where gravity might be 2 or 3 times stronger, movement would feel much heavier. Jumping would require enormous energy. Tall bodies might struggle to support their own weight, and delicate skeletons might not survive under such pressure. Because of this, scientists believe animals on a high-gravity world would likely evolve to be shorter, stronger, and more compact. Instead of tall creatures with long legs, many animals might have wide bodies with powerful limbs. Their bones might be thicker and denser to support the increased weight. Their muscles might be extremely strong to move against the pull of gravity. Imagine creatures somewhat like large reptiles or armored mammals, moving slowly but steadily across alien terrain. Their movements might appear powerful but deliberate, conserving energy in a world where every step requires effort. Some animals might even evolve multiple legs. Having 4, 6, or even 8 limbs could help distribute their weight more evenly across the ground. On Earth, insects already use this strategy. Their many legs allow them to move efficiently despite their small size. On a super-Earth, larger creatures might use a similar approach. Multiple legs could provide stability, strength, and balance. But gravity does not only influence walking animals. It also affects creatures that might fly. Flying on Earth requires a delicate balance between gravity and air resistance. Birds and insects rely on their wings to push against the air, creating lift. Lift is the upward force that allows something to rise into the sky. On a super-Earth, gravity would pull flying creatures downward more strongly. But remember something we discussed earlier. A super-Earth might also have a thicker atmosphere. Denser air can help wings generate more lift. So flying might still be possible, just in a different way. Instead of small birds flapping rapidly, flying creatures might resemble large gliders. They might spread enormous wings and drift slowly through the sky. Their wings could be wide and sturdy, designed to catch the thick air and carry them across great distances. Some might even resemble giant manta rays or flying reptiles. Imagine enormous creatures gliding silently through alien clouds, their shadows passing slowly across forests below. But not all life would live on land or in the sky. Many scientists believe that oceans are the most likely places for complex alien life to evolve. Water provides support against gravity, making it easier for large organisms to exist. Even on Earth, some of the most fascinating ecosystems exist in the deep ocean. Creatures there have adapted to darkness, pressure, and extreme conditions. Some produce their own light through a process called bioluminescence. Bioluminescence means the ability of a living organism to create light using chemical reactions inside its body. Certain fish, jellyfish, and tiny marine organisms use this ability to communicate, attract prey, or confuse predators. On a super-Earth with deep oceans, bioluminescent life might be incredibly common. Entire underwater environments could glow faintly with living light. Imagine vast alien seas where glowing creatures drift slowly through dark waters. Some might resemble giant jellyfish pulsing softly in the depths. Others might move like long, graceful serpents weaving between underwater cliffs. But evolution can produce even stranger forms of life. On Earth, animals evolved eyes to detect light. Eyes allow organisms to observe their environment, find food, and avoid danger. But eyes are only one way to sense the world. Some animals on Earth rely more heavily on other senses. Bats use echolocation, a system that sends out sound waves and listens for the echoes that bounce back. This helps them navigate in complete darkness. Sharks use special sensors that detect tiny electrical signals produced by other animals. This ability is called electroreception. Electroreception allows sharks to sense the electrical activity of muscles and nerves in nearby creatures. Alien animals on a super-Earth might develop entirely new sensory systems. Some might sense magnetic fields. Others might detect heat patterns. Some might even communicate using light flashes or vibrations in the ground. Evolution often finds surprising solutions to environmental challenges. Over millions or billions of years, natural selection can produce forms of life far more unusual than anything we can imagine today. But if ecosystems became complex enough, one more possibility emerges: intelligence. On Earth, intelligent life evolved only once in a form capable of building technology. Humans developed language, tools, and complex societies. But intelligence could theoretically evolve on other planets as well. If a super-Earth hosted intelligent beings, their bodies would reflect the environment of their world. They might be shorter and stronger than humans. Their bones and muscles adapted to heavy gravity. Their cities built low to the ground to resist the pull of the planet. Their technology designed for a world where movement and energy require greater effort. But if such civilizations exist somewhere among the billions of planets in our galaxy, one question becomes even more fascinating. How would technology and civilization develop on a planet where gravity itself is far stronger than on Earth? Could advanced societies truly rise in such a demanding environment? That is exactly what we will explore next. Imagine that somewhere on a distant super-Earth, intelligent life has evolved. Millions of years of evolution have shaped these beings to survive in a world with stronger gravity, thicker air, and landscapes very different from Earth. Their bodies are powerful and compact, perfectly adapted to the heavy pull of their planet. Now imagine that these beings have begun to build something remarkable: civilization. A civilization simply means a complex society where intelligent beings organize themselves into communities, develop technology, and create systems for living together. Humans built civilizations by creating cities, tools, agriculture, and communication systems. But on a super-Earth, civilization might look very different. The first major difference would appear in architecture, the way buildings and structures are designed. On Earth, gravity is strong enough to keep things stable, but not so strong that tall structures are impossible. Skyscrapers in cities like New York and Dubai reach hundreds of meters into the sky. But on a super-Earth, gravity might make extremely tall buildings dangerous. The weight of such structures would place enormous stress on their foundations. Instead of tall skyscrapers, cities might grow outward rather than upward. Buildings could be wide, sturdy, and low to the ground. Imagine entire cities spreading across vast landscapes like glowing networks of structures, all designed to remain stable under intense gravity. Their architecture might look more like massive domes, thick towers, and interconnected platforms hugging the surface of the planet. Materials would also need to be stronger. On Earth, we build with materials like steel, concrete, and glass. But on a super-Earth, advanced civilizations might develop ultra-strong alloys or synthetic materials capable of resisting immense gravitational stress. An alloy is a mixture of metals designed to improve strength or durability. For example, steel is an alloy made from iron and carbon. Alien engineers might discover entirely new materials with extraordinary properties. These materials could allow them to construct bridges, tunnels, and massive structures without collapsing under the planet's gravity. Transportation would also be very different. On Earth, vehicles move relatively easily because gravity allows us to roll wheels across the surface with moderate resistance. But on a super-Earth, vehicles might need more power to move heavy loads. Road vehicles might be extremely sturdy machines with powerful engines designed to overcome the planet's gravity. Some vehicles might even use magnetic levitation, often shortened to maglev. Maglev transportation uses magnetic forces to lift vehicles slightly above the ground, reducing friction and allowing smoother movement. On Earth, maglev trains already exist in some countries, gliding along tracks at incredible speeds. On a super-Earth, advanced civilizations might rely heavily on this technology to move across their dense, heavy world. But transportation might not be limited to the surface. Civilizations often dream of exploring the sky. Humans invented airplanes, rockets, and spacecraft to reach beyond Earth. But leaving the surface of a super-Earth would be much harder. The reason lies in something called escape velocity. Escape velocity is the speed an object must reach in order to break free from a planet's gravitational pull. On Earth, escape velocity is about 11.2 kilometers per second. That means rockets must travel at least that fast to leave Earth and enter space. On a super-Earth, escape velocity could be significantly higher. If the planet is twice as massive as Earth, rockets might need far more energy to escape its gravity. This could make space travel extremely challenging. Alien civilizations might need much larger rockets or entirely different technologies to reach space. One possible solution might involve space elevators. A space elevator is a theoretical structure extending from a planet's surface far into space. Instead of rockets blasting upward with enormous amounts of fuel, spacecraft could climb this structure slowly using mechanical systems. Although humans have not yet built a space elevator, scientists believe it could be possible if strong enough materials are discovered. On a super-Earth, advanced civilizations might eventually develop materials capable of supporting such structures. Another possibility involves launching spacecraft from extremely high mountains or floating platforms in the upper atmosphere. Remember that a thicker atmosphere could allow enormous floating platforms to exist. These platforms might hover high above the planet's surface, reducing the distance spacecraft must travel to reach space. From these aerial stations, spacecraft could launch into orbit more efficiently. But civilization is not only about buildings and transportation. It is also about energy. Energy powers everything in a technological society. Electricity lights our homes. Fuel moves our vehicles. Computers and machines depend on energy to operate. On a super-Earth, civilizations might rely on several energy sources. One possibility is solar energy. Solar energy comes from the radiation emitted by a star. Large arrays of solar panels might cover vast regions of the planet, capturing sunlight and converting it into electricity. Another possibility is geothermal energy. Geothermal energy comes from heat inside a planet. Many planets generate heat through radioactive decay and internal pressure. If a super-Earth had active geological processes, alien civilizations might tap into this heat by drilling deep into the planet's crust. Powerful underground reactors could convert this heat into electricity. Some advanced societies might even harness energy directly from their star using massive orbital structures. Scientists sometimes call such structures stellar megastructures. One famous example is the concept of a Dyson sphere. A Dyson sphere is a hypothetical structure that surrounds a star to capture a large portion of its energy output. Although building such a structure would require incredibly advanced technology, it shows how civilizations might expand beyond their home planet. But as technology advances, civilizations often begin asking deeper questions about the universe. They look toward the stars. They wonder whether other intelligent beings exist somewhere in the cosmos. And perhaps, on a distant super-Earth, an alien civilization might already be looking toward our own tiny blue planet, watching our sun from across the galaxy, and asking the same question humanity has asked for centuries. Are we alone? But before we imagine alien civilizations discovering Earth, there is one final question we must explore. If super-Earths are so massive and powerful, how common are they in the universe? And could one of them exist relatively close to our solar system? That is what we will explore next. Imagine pointing a powerful telescope toward the night sky. For thousands of years, humans looked at the stars and wondered whether planets existed around them. For most of history, we had no proof that other planetary systems even existed. But today, modern astronomy has changed that completely. Scientists have now discovered thousands of planets outside our solar system. These distant worlds are called exoplanets. The word exo simply means outside. So an exoplanet is a planet that exists outside our solar system, orbiting another star somewhere in the galaxy. And among these thousands of discoveries, one type of planet appears again and again: the super-Earth. Interestingly, our own solar system does not contain a super-Earth. Earth is the largest rocky planet here. But when astronomers observe other star systems, they frequently find planets larger than Earth, but smaller than gas giants like Neptune. These planets fall into the category scientists call super-Earths. In fact, some studies suggest that super-Earths may be one of the most common types of planets in the Milky Way galaxy. That means billions of them could exist. But how do scientists discover planets that are light years away? After all, planets are tiny compared to the stars they orbit. A bright star can completely hide a planet from view. To solve this problem, astronomers developed clever detection techniques. One of the most successful methods is called the transit method. The transit method works by observing tiny changes in a star's brightness. When a planet passes in front of its star from our point of view, it blocks a very small portion of the star's light. This causes a slight dip in brightness that sensitive telescopes can detect. These dips repeat at regular intervals as the planet continues orbiting its star. By studying these patterns, scientists can estimate the planet's size, orbit, and sometimes even its atmosphere. Many of these discoveries were made by space telescopes, such as the Kepler Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope. These instruments observe distant stars with extraordinary precision, allowing scientists to identify planets thousands of light years away. One famous super-Earth discovered using these methods is called Kepler 452b. This planet orbits a star similar to our Sun and lies within what scientists call the habitable zone. The habitable zone is the region around a star where temperatures may allow liquid water to exist on a planet's surface. Water is extremely important for life as we know it. On Earth, wherever liquid water exists, life often finds a way to survive. Because of this, astronomers sometimes refer to planets like Kepler 452b as potentially habitable worlds. But not all super-Earths are friendly environments. Some orbit extremely close to their stars, where temperatures may reach hundreds or even thousands of degrees. Others might be covered by deep oceans stretching across the entire planet. These ocean worlds are sometimes called water worlds. A water world is exactly what it sounds like, a planet where oceans cover most or all of the surface. On such planets, there may be no continents at all, only endless seas stretching from horizon to horizon. Imagine an entire planet covered by deep alien oceans, with storms forming across vast watery landscapes. If life existed there, it might evolve entirely underwater. But some super-Earths may have thick atmospheres filled with gases unfamiliar to us. Atmospheric composition plays a huge role in determining whether life could survive. For example, Earth's atmosphere contains about 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. Oxygen is especially important because it supports complex life. But many planets might have atmospheres dominated by carbon dioxide, methane, or other gases. These atmospheres could create intense greenhouse effects, trapping heat and dramatically changing the planet's climate. In some cases, the atmosphere might be so thick that sunlight barely reaches the surface. Such worlds might appear dim and mysterious beneath dense clouds. Yet, even these environments could potentially host forms of life very different from anything on Earth. Scientists often study these possibilities using computer simulations. They model different planetary conditions and explore how ecosystems might evolve under those circumstances. One fascinating discovery is that super-Earths might actually be better at supporting life than Earth in some ways. For example, a larger planet might hold on to its atmosphere more effectively over billions of years. This could create a stable climate for longer periods. A stronger magnetic field might also protect the planet from harmful radiation from space. Magnetic fields are generated by the movement of molten metals inside a planet's core. Earth's magnetic field protects our atmosphere from solar wind, a stream of charged particles flowing from the sun. Without this protection, the atmosphere could slowly be stripped away. Mars, for example, lost much of its atmosphere partly because its magnetic field weakened long ago. But a large super-Earth with an active interior might maintain a strong magnetic field for billions of years. This protection could help preserve oceans and atmospheres, two essential ingredients for life. However, the real question scientists continue to ask is this: even if super-Earths are common, and even if some of them have conditions suitable for life, has life actually appeared on any of them? The universe is incredibly vast. Our galaxy alone contains hundreds of billions of stars. Many of those stars likely have planets, and some of those planets may be super-Earths with oceans, atmospheres, and stable climates. Somewhere among those distant worlds, life may already be evolving. Perhaps simple microorganisms drifting in alien oceans. Perhaps strange ecosystems developing beneath unfamiliar skies. Or perhaps even intelligent civilizations living under heavier gravity than anything humans have ever experienced. But discovering such life is extremely difficult. The distances between stars are enormous. Even our fastest spacecraft would take tens of thousands of years to reach the nearest star systems. Yet scientists are continuing to develop new telescopes and instruments capable of studying distant planets in greater detail. And one day, we may finally detect the first signs of life beyond Earth. But if that discovery happens, there is a good chance it might occur on a super-Earth, a world larger than our own, orbiting a distant star, where life evolved under stronger gravity and thicker skies. And somewhere on that distant world, intelligent beings might also be asking a familiar question: what other life exists in the universe? In the final part of this journey, we will imagine what it might actually feel like for humans to visit such a world, and whether humanity could ever truly live on a super-Earth. Imagine that humanity has finally developed the technology to travel to distant star systems. After centuries of scientific progress, powerful spacecraft are capable of crossing the vast distances between stars. One day, astronomers detect a promising planet orbiting a nearby star, a super-Earth that appears to have oceans, clouds, and a stable atmosphere. Excitement spreads across Earth. Could this be the first world humans might visit beyond our solar system? A mission is prepared. After a long interstellar journey, the spacecraft finally reaches orbit around the distant planet. Below the spacecraft lies a massive world, larger than Earth, wrapped in thick clouds, with oceans and continents visible through gaps in the atmosphere. But before humans could live there, scientists would have to answer a very important question. Could the human body survive on a super-Earth? The first challenge would again be gravity. As we discussed earlier, super-Earths may have gravity 2 or 3 times stronger than Earth's. When astronauts first land on such a planet, the difference would be immediate. Standing up might feel exhausting. Every step would require much more effort. Even lifting your arms might feel heavier than usual. Your muscles and bones would experience constant stress from the increased gravitational pull. Over time, the human body might begin to adapt. Muscles would grow stronger from the extra effort required to move. Bones might become denser to support the additional weight. But the process would not be easy. Scientists studying human physiology, the science of how the body functions, believe that long-term exposure to very strong gravity could place serious strain on the heart and circulatory system. Your heart must pump blood throughout your body, including up to your brain. On a high-gravity planet, the heart would need to work much harder to move blood upward against the stronger gravitational pull. Over many years, this could lead to fatigue or health problems. But gravity is not the only factor that determines whether humans could survive on another planet. The atmosphere would also play a critical role. If the atmosphere contained breathable oxygen at the right pressure, humans might be able to survive outdoors. But if the atmosphere contained toxic gases or extremely high pressure, special equipment would be required. Pressure simply refers to how strongly gases press against objects. On Earth, we are used to the pressure at sea level. But on planets with thicker atmospheres, air pressure could be several times greater. High pressure might affect how humans breathe. Our lungs are designed to work within a specific range of pressure. Too much pressure could make breathing difficult or even dangerous. To solve this problem, future explorers might use protective suits or specialized habitats that control internal pressure. These habitats would act like miniature Earth environments, allowing astronauts to live safely while exploring the alien world. Temperature would be another critical factor. A planet that is too hot or too cold would make human survival extremely difficult. Scientists often search for planets located within the habitable zone of their stars. As mentioned earlier, the habitable zone is the region where temperatures may allow liquid water to exist. Liquid water is important not only for life itself, but also for human survival. Water is essential for drinking, growing food, and maintaining ecosystems. If a super-Earth contained large oceans and moderate temperatures, it might provide the resources necessary for long-term human exploration. But colonizing such a planet would still be an enormous challenge. The word colonization refers to the process of establishing permanent settlements in a new place. Humans have colonized new lands on Earth throughout history, but colonizing another planet would be far more complex. Settlers would need to bring equipment, food supplies, and technology capable of supporting life far from Earth. Over time, they might build cities protected by strong structures designed to withstand the heavier gravity. Agriculture, the practice of growing food, would also need to adapt to the new environment. Plants grown on a super-Earth might behave differently because of stronger gravity and different atmospheric conditions. Scientists might need to genetically modify crops to survive in alien soil. Genetic modification means altering the DNA of organisms to help them adapt to specific environments. Crops could be designed to grow shorter and stronger, similar to the plants we imagined earlier on a high-gravity world. Animals raised for food might also evolve or be selectively bred to adapt to the environment. Selective breeding is the process of choosing organisms with specific traits and encouraging them to reproduce, so those traits become more common. Over generations, entire ecosystems might gradually develop on a super-Earth colony. But perhaps the most fascinating possibility is that humans themselves might slowly evolve. Evolution does not stop simply because a species becomes intelligent. If humans lived on a super-Earth for many thousands of years, natural selection might begin to shape future generations. People born on a high-gravity world might develop stronger bones and muscles. Their bodies might become shorter and more compact to better support the heavier environment. Their hearts might grow more powerful to pump blood efficiently under stronger gravity. After many generations, humans living on a super-Earth might look slightly different from their ancestors on Earth. Yet they would still share the same origin, a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. And perhaps, centuries from now, descendants of those explorers might stand on the surface of that distant world and look up at their sky. They might see a different constellation of stars. Somewhere among those distant points of light, a faint yellow star would shine, our sun, and around that star would orbit a small blue planet called Earth, the place where their species first began its journey into the universe. But even if humans never reach a super-Earth, the discovery of such worlds has already changed the way we see our place in the cosmos. Because each new planet discovered reminds us of something profound. The universe is far larger and far more diverse than we once imagined. And somewhere among those distant worlds, life, in forms we may never fully predict, might already be waiting. If you enjoyed drifting through this distant world with me tonight, you might also enjoy the other deep space journeys on this channel. And if this video helped you relax or fall asleep while learning something new about the universe, consider subscribing for more calm science explorations. Until next time, keep looking up at the stars